How's it going, guys? So today we are finally beginning the card reviews for the core cards. After finishing the Genesis set card reviews, we're gonna jump right into some of the most powerful cards in the game, which makes sense because you need people to have access to these cards. They're crucial, and typically they're running pretty much like decks that typically run 50 to 70% core cards. So there's a lot of powerful cards here. But the main difference to Genesis is that there's less cards for the gods. So in terms of neutral cards, there's roughly the same amount of cards. But as for god cards, there's less cards. So what we're gonna be doing, as you're gonna see today, is we're gonna have one video reviewing all the cards of each god, because it's roughly around 26 cards for each card. So, let's jump right into the first god and one of the most played out there, which is Death. And here you're gonna be seeing that there's a lot of cards that you see being played during the current meta, where most of the good removals, the single target removals, as well as the board clears are in the core set. So if you want to get them, make sure you grind as much as you can, or you can always go to the marketplace and acquire them. So the first card, and we're starting very well with a really powerful card, we have Black Bomb. So Black Bomb, what it does is it destroys a creature with health 3 or less, and it only costs 1 mana. So that's this is the best single target removal, one of the best single target removals that there is in the game, because for very low amounts of mana you can typically remove pretty much anything that's super early game. So I'm gonna give this card 4 stars, and it should be running pretty much every death deck. Then we have Brimstone, where it deals 2 damage to each god and draws a card. So compared to other cards that we've seen before from the Genesis set, this card's fairly good. It allows you to draw a card for 1 mana, which is typically okay. The issue here is that you're going to be dealing damage. You could also use this to deal some extra amounts of damage to the opponent cut if you're running a super aggressive deck. But we're probably going to be seeing in the next expansions Death play more with the thematic of dealing damage to itself and getting benefits from having damage dealt to itself or low amounts of health. So this card is going to become more powerful, but for the time being I'm going to put it in the 3 stars. Because it's not good, it's not bad, it's okay. Then we have Flashbang. And Flashbang's quite interesting because Death also has a god power, which is Blood Ritual, which gives leech to one of your creatures for that turn. And that's typically one of the few survivability mechanics that Death has, as well as some of these cards where you can sacrifice your creatures and heal your god for a certain amount of health. When it comes to Flashbang, it heals its strength plus health. If you're in a pinch and you have the advantage in terms of tempo, because you've been using a lot of cards that deal that are really powerful but that deal damage to your god, you're typically gonna have the advantage in terms of tempo, which means that later down the line, if you need, you can always use a Flashbang on a 4/6 or something like that to gain back 10 health. So this card's fairly good. I'm gonna put it in the 4-star category, and it's quite interesting. I ran it in my death control deck, so you should all consider running it as well. Then we have Raveing Spirit. Creatures damaged by this creature get burn +1, and the downside is that you have to obliterate a card in your hand. Now, obliterating a card in your hand, it's not a random card, so you can choose which of the cards you don't need. So I would say this is fairly good. If it was random, I would put it in the 2 or 1-star category, but I'm gonna put this in the 3 stars. We're gonna have to see if this becomes more powerful as time goes on, because Death will possibly get more draw mechanics, and being able to draw cards fairly easily pairs well with things like Raveing Spirit, where you have a lot of tempo advantage for 1 mana. It's a 3/3, so 3 stars. Then we have Bonfire. Bonfire is kind of like a 4-star card because it runs really well on super aggressive decks. and it's a fairly easy way to do at least 5 damage, because you summon the Bonfire, then you attack at least once with it, and it deals 3 damage in the afterlife, plus the 2 to the face from attacking, so that's 5 damage. And 5 damage to the opponent's squad for 1 mana if you're running a super aggressive deck is really good, so 4 stars. Then we have Living Container. Living Container is another 4-star card, because it allows you to play very well with the afterlives. So it destroys a friendly creature, and when this card dies, the Living Container, it brings back that creature with a buff, +2/+2. So if you're running on Afterlife cards, if you use it on Afterlife cards, you're gonna trigger the Afterlife of that card, which is gonna give you a benefit. And then it comes back buffed, and it has Afterlife again. So you're kind of like cheating a bit of mana here by triggering an Afterlife. So the comparison I would make is that from the stat line, this is already a 2 mana 3/3, because it gives +2/+2 to a creature. So you are at least cheating them, and that's normal stat line for 2 mana. So you're at least cheating the Afterlife. So the more powerful the Afterlife is, the more amount of mana you are cheating in the game. So for example, if there's an Afterlife where you could argue that it's like worth 4 mana for that Afterlife, then you're gaining 4 mana in terms of tempo. So this card is really good. It's 4 stars. Another 4 stars that we have is Ruined Asp. Typically, death decks want to run to the late game, because after 6 mana, you're pretty much safe against anything, because you can kill anything in the game. You have Reap, you have other types of board clear cards, so you're going to be fairly safe. And the way that you do it with Ruined Asp is that you choose the unlock 2 mana locks, the unlock a mana lock, and then you basically are ramping up to the late game faster and faster. And the opponent's also ramping, but if you're running a death deck, what you care about is you being in the late game. It doesn't matter if the opponent is or not. So I'm also gonna put this in the 4-star card, 4-star category, to be able to. It's played in a lot of decks. Then we have Void Banshee. A Void Banshee is quite interesting because it has a really good. It's one of those types of cards where you're getting a really good stat line, an overpowered stat line, but you're dealing damage to your god. The only thing here is that if it was only deal 4 damage, this card would be super good. But then it pulls the top card of your deck into your Void. Well, this might work with certain types of revival types of decks, but it's kind of like RNG. You might be running a Hydra and it pulls the Hydra onto the Void. But you could also argue that if it pulls a really good card and you have, for example, the Raise Dead, the card that we're going to review later, then you're going to be able to bring it back from the Void at 5 mana, and it's kind of a cheat card. So I'm going to put this card in the 4-star category as well, because it has a lot of versatility, and as I mentioned, during the next expansions, they're going to be playing a lot with the dealing damage to your god in terms of death and gaining benefits from that. So this card is going to become more powerful as time goes on. Then we have Raveing Necromancer. Whenever a creature dies, heal its god for 2. So this is one of the other few heal mechanics that Death has in terms of recoverability in the late game. But it only works fairly well if you're running a super aggressive deck and you have a lot of creatures. And then it also works on the opponent's creatures. So it's not only friendly creatures. So this card's fairly good. It's not amazing because typically as soon as you play this, because the stats line is not that great to be able to survive it. If it was 2-3 it would be better, but people are gonna just deal with it super fast, so it's not gonna survive for long. So I'm gonna put this in the 3-star category. It might be it's close to 4-star, but still 3 stars. Then we have Thanatos spell Locusts. So it has Deadly, and at the start of your turn choose and obliterate the card in your hand. then summon this creature from the void. So this is kind of like a recycle mechanic. I haven't seen this being played a lot in the game, although it's a fairly good card, because if you need Deadly, it would be better if it had Blitz or something like that, or Blitz and or Frontline, one of those, and it would be a really good card. But since it doesn't have it, and you're putting Deadly on the board, they're probably going to target it, so you're losing a card from your hand just to put a threat on the board, and they're going to target it with a spell or something like that. So I'm gonna put this in the 3 stars for now. Maybe it gets buffed in the future. We don't know. Then we have Fecal Cambion. So Fecal Cambion has whenever your god gains health, this creature gains +1 health. And when your god loses strength, this creature gains +1 strength. So if you're running this card with these types of decks where you're dealing damage to your god or you're healing your god, then this card becomes fairly good because it only needs to gain strength 2 times. So I would argue that at least but it's on effect, so you're not gaining the strength and health equals to the amount of damage or heal that you do to your god. That would be super good, but it's not. So it's each time you deal damage. So this works well with cards that deal damage to your god very little, but I would argue that for this to be worth it in terms of when you're playing it, you need to gain at least 2 strength or 2 health to be able to be like 3-5 or 5-3 worth of stats. But I think this card is really good. It's not played a lot, but I think it's going to see a lot of play in the future, so I'm going to put it in the 4-star category. And we got to keep an eye out, because in the future it will become more powerful. Then we have Rock. Aurora and Afterlife, both players draw a card. If you're running a super aggressive deck, this is okay, because you're drawing 2 cards and you're putting something on the board for 3 mana. I would argue that drawing 2 cards is already worth 3 mana, so but the opponent also draws 2 cards, so I would argue that this is 2 mana for the draw mechanic for both cards, and then 1 mana for the 4/1, which is pretty good. So I'm gonna have to put this in the 4-star category again, because it's a really good card to be played in aggressive decks, and also if you just wanna draw more cards. Then we have Dreaming Spectre. At the start of your turn, remove 1 durability and destroy the enemy creature with the lowest health. So, and deals damage to your god. So this card is really good. It's not a 5, it's close to being a 5-star. If it was with the highest health, then it would be a 5-star. But it's the lowest health. So this works really well. If you only let the opponent have 1 creature per turn in their board. If they only summon 1 creature, then you're always killing that creature, even though you're dealing a lot of damage to yourself. This is like a free, it can potentially remove up to 3 or 4 cards for 3 mana, which is absolutely amazing. Even though you're taking the damage to your god, I'm still gonna put this in the 4-star category because it's a really good card. And as you can see, like from the scorecard review, there's a lot of 4 stars already. As I said before, a lot of core cards are really good to be played compared to the Genesis cards. Then we have Dust to Dust, which is I would say another 4-star, very close to 5 stars, but it's it's like the only god that has a 4 mana board clear that's as good as this one, because it basically destroys everything that's early game, and it's really good. You should be having it in any death control deck. So 4 stars. And then we have Void Flash. Select a friendly creature and an enemy creature, destroy both of them. If you're killing a really big creature, for your opponent and your creature is really small, then this is worth it. But I would argue that for 4 mana there's better uses of the mana. So I'm gonna put this in the 3 stars category. It depends on how the meta goes, but I don't think this card is as good as it could be. Then we have Nether Warp. Transform a creature into the 3/3 Nether Beast. So this is like for me, this is a 3 star. I would argue that you could put it in the 2 stars, but then you also have to think that you're not only using it on your creatures, but you're also using it on the opponent's creatures, and this is like Death's use of like comparison to the Ratify from Magic. So for 4 mana, Ratify costs 5, and for 4 mana you're giving them a higher creature, but if they have a really strong afterlife effect, or if it's a really big creature, then you want to be doing this for 4 mana, so I'm still going to put this in the 3 star. Then we have the old ritual, transform a friendly creature into a 6/6 Nether spawn. I argue that this is a 4 star card because it's super powerful. Typically what you do is you apply this on a really low started creature, a card that costs 1 or 2 mana, or a creature that has had a lot of health, but then you by means of trading it's like at 1 or 2 health, and this is kind of like refreshing it, and it's putting a really aggressive card on the board, a 6/6, so it's really good. So 4 stars. Then we have Famished Skull. Famished Skull, I would also argue that it's 4 stars because it's kind of like essential for any super aggressive type of deck. You want to in aggressive types of decks, you're gonna have a lot of creatures on the board, and if you're running out of if you're running low on cards on your hand, then you just play this and you trade your creatures against the opponent's creature, and you're gonna be drawing cards for your creatures. So it's kind of like recycling, but it's really good. Then we have Raise Dead, and Raise Dead's the first core card that is gonna get 5 stars. So why is it 5 stars? Because summon a creature from any void. So first of all, you can choose your opponent's creatures as well. And second of all, you can for 5 mana summon back stuff that costs 9 mana or 8 mana. And those cards are game winning cards. So being able to summon them back, they're gonna be super hard to be dealt with. So the opponent, for example, you summon a Hydra, and the opponent a 9 mana Hydra, and the opponent deals with it. It's gonna take at least 2 removal spells to be able to deal with it, and then you just use Raise Dead and you bring it back again. And so that's super annoying, and you can be bringing back really powerful cards a lot of the times, and after the second, once you play the second Raise Dead, it's really unlikely that they'll have answers to it. So this card's a 5 stars for sure. Then we have Ray of Disintegration, which is the Death's single target removal. It's 1 mana cheaper than Reap, but Reap heals for 4, and Ray of Disintegration deals 2 damage to your god. So you might argue that you want to be running these cards on your deck. It depends. I would argue that Reap is a better option, so I'm gonna put this in the 3 star category because you have a much better option to run for just 1 extra mana. Then we have Sand Scorpion, where it has Deadly, and it triggers an Afterlife from your Void. And you can choose, so you can pick a really strong Afterlife and you can keep summoning it. For example, there's a 7 mana neutral card that summons 2 3/2s, the Townblade Master, and for example, if you use it with Sand Scorpion, then you're getting 6/4 worth of stats on top of this, which is gonna make it a 7/7 card for 5 mana, which is really good. So it depends on which Afterlife you apply it on, but it also gives you the flexibility to choose which one it is. So I would argue that this card's a 4 star card because it gives you a lot of flexibility and it can become super powerful. Then we have Whiteboard Blast, and I'm gonna put the Whiteboard Blast at 3 stars because Death has better removals, whether it's the Apocalypse Now or the End Times. It has, even though they cost more mana, they're way more effective. So I'm gonna put those cards above this one. This is 3 stars. Then we have Empiric Skull, where it summons a random creature that costs 3 mana or less. So you're basically cheating 3 mana. For 6 mana, you're getting 9 mana worth of sets, but this also has burn 1. But I'm still gonna put this in the 4-star category because it's a really good card to be played, and it's always interesting because it summons two things, and the opponent has to deal with 2 things, where you typically for 6 mana would only summon 1. Then we have Phylactery. At the start of your turn, it basically recycles your cards from the void onto your hand, and this might be interesting. The issue is that it costs a lot of mana, and 6 mana for this, even though it's a really powerful spell. It's a really powerful card. The issue is that it brings back the one with the lowest health. So I would argue that this would only make sense if it was the reverse. So it brings back the creature with the highest health to your hand. Then for 6 mana it would be worth it. But like this, it's not worth it at all. So I'm gonna put this at 2 stars. Then we have Cerberus sticks out, and Cerberus is kind of like I'm gonna put this in the 5-star category because of the cards. It's together with Raise Dead, it's one of the most powerful cards because you can get a lot of mana. Being able to destroy 3 other creatures, and if you only have Cerberus and you're destroying the opponent's creatures, you're getting a board, basically a board clear every turn, at the end of each turn. So that's completely gigantic. This card would be absolutely broken if it had ward or protected, but I'm still gonna put this in the 5 stars because it's really good. Then we have End Times. For 8 mana, you're destroying everything and summoning a demonic skull, and I would put this at 4 stars. I'm not gonna say 5 stars because it's 8 mana, so for 8 mana you need to expect to have a really big effect, and this is good. And you can always combo it with Raise Dead, because when the demonic skull dies, even though it might be a 5/5 or a 6/6 on the board, when it goes to the void, it's a 9/9, and you can always use the Raise Deck to bring the 9/9 back to life. So that makes it really good. And I'm gonna put this at 4-star category. And that's it, guys. That's for today's video, the Death Core card review. As you can see, there's really powerful cards, and you're gonna be seeing this in a lot of the other gods, that they're gonna have really powerful cards in the core set, and that's fairly needed because you want to be able to have everyone that's playing in the play to earn model earn really powerful cards and trade them, and there's going to be general liquidity in the marketplace because people are always going to be needing these cards in order to make viable decks. So anyways, guys, make sure you smash that like button and answer the question in the description to participate in the giveaway. And don't forget that you all, during these card review videos, you need to answer correctly every time so that you can participate in the mega giveaway that we're gonna have, where we're gonna be giving away a Tiet, a Disciple, and a Priest board. And that's it, guys. See you guys next time. Peace out. Bye bye.